Americans become targets overseas. The Strait of Hormuz closed. Flights out of Israel resume. Regime change in Iran. Assassination attempts on Trump's cabinet members. And more suicide bombings. Welcome to Scrying Out Loud. My name is Trevor. First off, a huge thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the channel. Thank you for liking, watching, commenting on the videos. If you've been promoting the channel on your social media, a huge, huge thank you. And if you've donated money to the channel through Venmo, Buy Me a Coffee, the super thanks. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. And a huge, huge thank you. I have started a Patreon channel where we're going to do videos based on what you guys want to talk about. If you're interested in that, I will link the Patreon link in the description of this video. It's also listed on the channel as well. Um, so we'll do member-led videos, and from time to time, I'll also offer some special discounts for private readings, and I think I might do some tutorials in the future, so look out for announcements on that. All right, so I don't know about you all, but it was an exhausting weekend emotionally and mentally, and it feels like the world is in this sort of limbo place of not really sure what, uh, can't really picture what the future is. All this uh, I kind of described in on the other channel in some of the videos around the energies around the astrological events and the weeks and stuff like that. So it is definitely a trying time. I do think that we're really close to the peak of the crazy and then things start to get better. So do know that. There was a suicide bombing on Sunday in Syria that killed, I think, 20 some people. This is something I had seen coming. And now that the US has bombed Iran, I think we will see increases in this. We'll look at that with the cards. Um, and they might not even be directly related to, or we might not see the direct link to what the United States and Israel are doing in Iran, but there's a link. There'll always be some sort of link going back to um, these aggressions on Iran. Okay, it's the main airport in Israel has been closed for a while. Flights, will they resume? The felon said he wants regime change in Iran. Is that going to happen? And then when I was scrying, um, I saw two very disturbing themes in the images. One was Americans becoming targets overseas. I think this is just something to be aware of. I don't know that it's something that I would change travel plans about. I probably wouldn't travel to, you know, the Middle East unless you really have to, but that's me personally. I don't necessarily see anything bad happening, but I think most of the targeting is going to happen actually in some European and North African countries and a little bit in the Middle East. So we'll look at that as well. And then the other images I got were people trying to plan some way to assassinate, and there were pictures of Kristi Noem, Marco Rubio, and Tulsi Gabbard. So, are there actual assassination plots being planned? Um, will they be successful? I don't think they'll be successful, but I think they are being planned. So, let's look at that. Let's first start with what do we need to know about the Strait of Hormuz? So, this is the sea passage that goes, between Iran and the United Arab Emirates and Oman and um, the eastern side of uh, the Arabian Peninsula and Iran. So, um, All right, so will Iran be successful at keeping the strait closed? Some big oil tankers have already turned around. The price of oil, when I checked before I sat down to record this, was up about 2%. Um, that's actually not as big of a swing as you might think. Oil has been kind of on a low. We certainly haven't seen any of those savings in the US because of the corporate greed, but oil's actually been on the lower side of trading lately. Okay, what do we need to know? Will the strait stay closed? I think so. I think Iran's hoping to use this as a bargaining chip to get something. Again, like in the video I posted yesterday, I think the attacks between Israel and Iran, they keep going back and forth. I don't necessarily think the US bombs Iran again. Um, I could be wrong. I'm not always right. I know I've been right a lot of the time. And so I have to admit, I was a little surprised that um, the US bombed Iran. And I think part of it was because, the felon's brain is such mush that I don't know that tapping into his energy is the right way to read what's going on um, with decision making because he's so easily influenced. So, uh, anyhow, so he said something about wanting regime change in Iran. We'll look at that in just a bit. I don't see how that gets accomplished militarily. Now, I do think there's a lot of people in in Iran that wants regime change as well. So yeah, the it's a new financial reality. The strait's going to stay closed for a while. The price of oil is going to go up. Prices of other things as well will go up. Bombshells and surprises in the environment around. Uh, I do think this will take its toll on the smaller Gulf states like Qatar and the UAE. I think that's not good for the felon. I think, if he wants to maintain good relationships with them, uh, there's going to have to be some battle over opening the strait. And I'm not sure how that plays out. And we get the people, there were big protests in New York over the bombings. I suspect there'll be big protests all week and as well as into next weekend. Uh, and they do make a difference. They really do. Um, the felon's defending himself and the environment around. As gas prices go up in the United States, and I think they will, um, we'll throw a card on that here in a second. There's things behind the scenes that we can't see. So I always wondered whether China or Russia would prop up Iran in various ways. And this might be one way that they're doing it is, just making sure that the appropriate things are there to block passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Um, there will be a fight over it eventually. I don't know that it's actually a physical fight. And we get temperance. I think cooler heads kind of prevail at the end. But we do have this spy in the camp, the assassin, I don't like the page of swords appearing here. And we get the Ace of Wands, uh, kind of a fiery new way of doing things. So it's a new financial reality because the strait's closed. There are forces helping to keep it closed that we can't see. And this will lead to something new, some sort of new negotiation around something to open up the strait. I do think heads prevail in the US and in Iran with respect to the US. Now, Iran and Israel is a totally different story. Again, things behind the scenes, and ultimately we get the people having the say. So, um, now, why the people of Iran might also want a regime change, they are not at all pleased with the United States at the moment, and this is a very dangerous situation. This is, not unusual, but, for my entire lifetime, Iran's been typecast as this horrible state, that is out to cause harm and danger. And I'm not saying that that's not entirely true. What I'm saying is I think that's a little bit misleading. And the people of Iran generally have sided with Western values, like in theory, right? They have to obey what's going on to be safe for themselves. But, I don't think they're any happier. I think they would like a secular country as well, right? So, anyhow, yeah, the bombshell here, I think, is that the people of Iran now are strongly against the United States, probably ruining diplomatic relations for, 50 years, but, that's apparently what the felon's for. Uh, he'll find himself defending himself. I do think we need to be cognizant of the fact that um, there are spies in the camp, so to speak, inside the US government, as well as inside the Iranian government and the Israeli government. And there's going to be a lot of fighting going forward. Um, Now, this could just be diplomatic fighting too. It doesn't necessarily need to be physical. So, closing the strait to be isolating. And we get the magician and stability. And I feel like Iran has everything that they need to keep the strait closed, at least for a while. I think if it goes on too long, something will happen in the sense of, trying to negotiate it reopening. But um, yeah, I think gas prices will go up in the US. Let's throw this card. This seems to be something only, one of the things MAGA cares about. The US is so weird when it comes to things, but the price of gas is one thing that really makes people mad quickly. So hope gas prices go up. Yes, they're going to go up. Um, don't know what they are in our area. Actually, it's been a while since I bought gas, but I don't know. Last time I looked, it was like 270 something a gallon, maybe. So I'd expect it to go over $3. So 30, probably a 10% increase at least. Okay. Will regime change happen in Iran? I don't think it'll happen in the way that the felon wants it to happen. Now, it might happen, and obviously it'll happen eventually, but I think it's going to happen because of anything the US does. Will the US be able to cause regime change in Iran? I don't think so. Let's see what some of the cards say. No, I mean, we get the King of Wands. The last thing the citizens of Iran want at this point is the US dictating anything for them. That, maybe could have looked differently if we actually had people that thought things through and didn't act like a bunch of numbskulls, but we don't. Uh, I think eventually we move out of the troubled waters with the Six of Swords and the environment around, and this talk kind of settles down. Um, we do get fiery new leadership, but I don't think it's regime change. I think it's just the approach in the world. And, I was somewhat heartened that most of Latin America came out and condemned the bombing, as did some other countries. I think that's what this is about, is it's no longer we're siding with Israel on every single thing, no matter what, for most countries. That time's over. Netanyahu's ruined that time. And so I think that's what this is about more than anything else. There will be fighting, but I think it's mostly diplomatic. The felon's at the center of the reading. I think the felon's really the only one that wants this, in the sense of is bringing it up, because I don't think one could do that without actually going to full scale war, and I don't think anybody really wants that. The felon's just not smart enough to know that. We do get loss in the environment around, and the truth. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Fiery messages coming out, being exchanged, barbs back and forth, and we get ill health. So Iranians are very passionate about doing things the way they want them done and not being told how to do them. So the felon is seen as an obstacle in the situation, but he's also seen as very ill as well. The truth does come out eventually about why what happened, how the felon was manipulated, and who really called the shots there. And I think it might surprise us all, but I don't think I think it's a cabinet member, um, and Israel. So eventually we move away from the trouble, but in the meantime, there's a lot of fighting and a lot of loss, and there's a lot of barbs being traded back and forth. So I think it's just a matter of time, juggling money overseas influences underneath. So I don't think whether there'll be regime change or not is probably a different question, but the US will not be the ones that cause it. If there are, okay, what about these flights out of Israel? People are getting nervous that they can't get out of Israel. Um, will people be able to leave Israel? Will people be able, just a yes or no? Will people be able to leave Israel? See big backlogs, a lot of manipulation of the system, people paying crazy prices to get out. There'll be a few flights, I think, during daylight hours. We are at the height of daylight, or starting to slow down, but still lots of daylight. Hmm. We get the full card. We keep going. We get judgment, and then we get the magician. There's a lot of energy around this. So I certainly don't want to scare anybody. Um, Messages coming forward, but it does concern me that there might be some attempts to target domestic airlines coming out of the Middle East, and particularly out of Israel. Although I don't think the people targeting them necessarily care where they come out of. I just think it'll be clear that that's where they're coming from. And the Nine of Pentacles. So I mean, the problem is they can't fly south first because we've got Yemen. I guess you could fly over Egypt, maybe, but even that I think is fraught with some issues. The Knight of Wands, everything is known. That's what the Knight of Pentacles is about. All the flight patterns will be known, the flight logs. People are going to figure out all this stuff. It's a scary situation. It's very much a crossroads. People want out. They can't get out. Get the Page of Swords again in the same position. That's not a good spot for it. We get the Four of Swords also in the same position. So this is like a new reality that we have to be worried about everybody knowing the flight plans, the times, the takeoffs, all that stuff's easily, I mean, you can just check any flight you want. Um, so I think for a while there's going to be a break on flights out of Israel. There already has been, but I don't know that it resumes. And if it does, I don't know. Um, it feels a little scary, I'll be honest. So we get the two wands. It's definitely a new way of thinking about things. Again, everything is known, and then people conjuring up some really dark plans. Spies in the camp wanting to send fiery messages. Both the Page and the Knight of Pentacles, fiery messages, and airplanes don't sound like a good combination. Um, and it's to pass judgment on the actions of Israel and the United States. Yeah, messages coming forward, the truth being revealed, and if one plan doesn't work, try another. Lots of deceit and deception. And we get the fourth page too, the Page of Cups. That's all four pages. Um, I'm not entirely sure. I I think the Israeli government's very concerned about flights being shot down. Um, and I think they should be. I'm just going to leave it at that. So, yeah. Okay, more suicide bombings. So there was a suicide bombing Sunday in Syria, the first one since Assad's government had been toppled. So it had been quite a while since there had been a suicide bomber. Will there be more? I keep I keep seeing this image of a suicide bomber, but it's a female suicide bomber. This was a male suicide bomber. Now, the images aren't that I get aren't always that specific, but I feel like there's not just one, but a series of them on the same day. Like it feels like there's like three or four on the same day, and I sure hope I'm wrong. Like I mean, it's very clear. It feels like Christian churches will be targets in the Middle East. So the 4-1, yeah, the people need to be very diligent about watching out for things. The Hierophant as well, the church. It feels like it's going to be at churches again. This one in Syria was at a church. Churches seem like the logical way to attack Western civilization. Well, that's not what I really meant to say. That's not what I meant at all. What I meant was to attack, American ideology, that kind of way of thinking. Um, I don't know that this is in the Middle East either. Juggling money, overseas affairs. There's certainly lots of sponsors here to make this happen. a lot of burdens to be borne. At the center of the reading is the felon, the King of Pentacles. Why is it going to happen? It's going to happen because of the felon. This is a surprising new beginning. Of course, it's not going to help anything whatsoever. It's going to make things a lot worse, and so let's hope it doesn't happen. But crazy and crazy don't go together to make sane. So this approach of trying to send a message by uh, terrorist attacks, I mean, it's just the history of the world. So people feeling confined and trapped, like they have no other options. This is the only way they can get their voices heard. They've been um, quite radicalized, but they're also kind of not wrong in their way of thinking that their way of life is under attack too. They're not exactly wrong on that. The tower tearing down of structures and the Queen of Wands, that sort of judgment type, prosecutorial type energy of the Queen of Wands in particular. This feels like it happens at churches. I feel like there's a series of them. I hope I'm wrong. I don't usually don't trust things that are super specific most of the time. It's kind of just more bigger, larger themes. So I think you know, will there be more suicide bombings? I think the answer to that is yes. Where they'll be, I'm not entirely sure that they're at churches, but that's what it feels like. Um, are they in the Middle East? I don't think so. I think they're in Europe. So I hope I'm wrong. Underneath, we have the Seven of Cups, illusion and delusion, and giving and receiving of information. And eventually, we get the Six of Swords, heading away from trouble. So things do calm down eventually. Let's hope that these plots get caught and they don't actually happen. It might just be that they catch the plots before they happen. Um, it feels like, France. It feels like it happens in France. Okay. Hope I'm wrong. Really hope I'm wrong. Okay. Americans become targets overseas. Um, Americans become targets overseas. Do Americans become targets overseas? Now, obviously, there's some things we can do about that. We can not wear anything to identify us as American, but as soon as we speak English, it's probably going to be pretty well known. But I think most places are going to be fine. I think, you know, North Africa, France in particular seem like, and of course the Middle East. But most of the Middle Eastern countries will be fine too. Americans become targets overseas. Um, Possibly like Indonesia as well. Muslim majority countries where there's, that potential for these cells to be operating. Yeah, people are going to have to make choices. The Two of Swords. It's a little bit of a gamble to travel right now. The Wheel of Fortune. Now, domestically, it's fine. Going to the UK is fine. Um, Norway, Sweden, those places fine. I think it's just kind of those hot spots. Moving away from trouble, the Six of Swords. So we get the Ten of Pentacles. It feels like there's going to be a lot put into trying to send a message to the felon, and that might be by attacking American citizens. And this is where things could really spiral out of control. I don't think it does. I don't think there's success in this. I just think that the targeting is there. It's to send a message with the Knight of Pentacles about the toxicity, the mis and disinformation that the felon and his administration are spreading, and the attack on Islam, which isn't entirely accurate, but it's not really that far from the truth with what Israel is doing and with what the felon is doing, and then even with what Prime Minister Modi in India is doing as well. Um, there is an attack on Islam. So we get the Ace of Pentacles. It's a new reality for people in the United States. The Tower, in the same position that we had it before. Structures being torn down. Um, you know, the American passport is the structure being torn down here. It's just not as strong as it used to be. It'll get even weaker next year, and it doesn't come with there's not as much safety in international travel. The Hanged Man, people will be putting off trips. I think people know this, so people are going to have to make choices. They know that this is the potential for a way to send a message to the felon. So I think a lot of people are going to put stuff on hold. This is just a new reality that we're going to have to deal with for a while, but eventually it goes away. It goes away when the felon goes away or shortly thereafter. But we have toxicity in the environment around. Traveling to certain parts of the world feels like a gamble. Um, Americans will be a target because it's a way to send a message. It's a way to tear down that structure of American arrogance, so to speak. Yeah, juggling money, overseas travel, logic, consistency, and the world is watching. So I don't know. It's going to be a fraught few months. That's for sure. Okay, so what about assassination attempts on Trump's cabinet? Now, this feels like it comes from inside the US, just to be clear. I worry that some of the law enforcement will start targeting innocent individuals based on their geographical place of birth, even more so than what they're doing now. Will there be more assassination plots on Trump cabinet? Will there be more assassination plots on Trump cabinet? There's already, I think, been a few that haven't been revealed yet. Definitely been plots on him that have been unveiled. Yeah, bombshells and surprises. Partnerships, people coming together to try to accomplish this goal, to send a message to the administration. Now, whether it would be successful or not, the answer is, of course, it wouldn't. It would just make things a lot worse. So let's hope it doesn't happen. The Nine of Pentacles, there are a lot of resources. Uh, they should definitely be on the defensive, defending themselves, guarding themselves. The Seven of Wands at the center of the reading. The people plotting think they're doing this to better the next generation. I don't think that that would actually be what happens. Some unlikely partners with the Lover's card. And everything converges to one point, and the point that it converges to is to try to get the felon out of the government. And then we get, interesting enough, the magician and the lower left, sometimes my card for Elon Musk. So bombshells and surprises, they're definitely on the defensive. They're well aware that these plots are going on. Um, they're monitoring things like Twitter and other social interaction places. Some unlikely partners coming together to try to carry this out and to send a message. I don't think it's successful, but I do think the plots are there. Partnerships, everything is about removing the felon so that we can return to this Nine of Wands energy about having everything we need, not necessarily everything we want, and thinking about the next generation. Right now, we don't really have everything that we need. The thing that we're missing is security and comfort. So people feel very much left out in the cold, that they don't have a seat at the table, that their voice is not being heard. They feel sabotaged. I think these plots would be from inside MAGA as well, at least the big ones. So, um, which you would think might open some eyes, but I don't think that they're actually capable at this point. So, um, everything does get better as we move towards the end of the summer and into the autumn. So just know that that's what's going to happen. These are probably the next few weeks are probably the most intense. So anyhow, thank you for watching. Love to have you join the Patreon channel. If you're interested, the link will be in the description of this video as well as on the channel's page. I'll be back with another video soon.